I'm a guy who likes to stay busy. I've had my own business for 20 years. It was always a side gig until about 5 years ago. When I was a priest, I had three businesses. In addition to running the churches, I had my motivational speaking business. I had a website business called Roman Catholic Retreats, and I had a bus touring business. I would take people on tours of churches in Ohio. In addition to running the two churches and the nonprofits and all that jazz. So I've always liked to stay busy. I like to create structures. I like to do things. One of the things about taking care of Jennifer was that I was busy all the time taking care of her. I love taking care of her. It was the biggest pleasure of my life, frankly, to take care of her. It was easy to take care of her. Sometimes she thought that she was a burden on me. She was never a burden on me. She was just pleasant to take care of. She was always just wonderful to take care of. Easy to take care of. I miss that. I've always, in my business that I was full-time with, there's really two sides of it. I was doing marketing and mostly hypnotherapy. I was mostly doing my own marketing. One of the things that I probably haven't been great on in my business is I like to create things. I like to create brand new markets and marketing workflows and blah, blah, blah. I like doing all that stuff. I need structure. When I was in the church, I had plenty of structure. I had lots of structure. I structured my businesses. Structure is something I really need because I'm not always the most disciplined person in the world. I still struggle with discipline. I always said if I could be disciplined and patient, I'd take over the world. So I miss that right now. And I still have a little structure. Before Jen got sick, I had this morning routine that I go through. I'd read something like the Daily Stoic, or I'd read a part of a book. I would go for a walk. I had this kind of morning routine that I would do. I lost a lot of that I lost it all. That morning routine when she got sick, every day was so different. One day we'd go to the hospital at 6 a.m. The next day we wouldn't have hospital for the next 3 days. Or we'd have an 8-hour hospital day and then nothing for 2 days. Or we'd have a 2:30 in the afternoon appointment, which I had to get her ready for. It was just all over the place. She just didn't know. So my structure really suffered. Her sleeping pattern was a little different than mine. She loved staying up late. She was a night owl even in the late stages of her cancer. Oftentimes I would stay up with her because that was my time with her. I would gladly sacrifice my sleep just to be up with her. That's when she was most alive, most awake. And then she'd sleep until noon the next day because she was exhausted from the cancer. Then she would be up for a few hours and sleep for a few hours and then be up late. That was kind of the routine. I'd have to get up with the dogs at 7 a.m. and would rarely go back to sleep. I wasn't sleeping very much, but I lost that structure. Since she's died, I have put that structure back into place. I'm sleeping so hard right now. I think that's part of the grief. I calculated it. I slept 9 hours last night. I never sleep that much. I usually sleep about 6 or 7. I'm sleeping 9 and it's a hard sleep. My days I'm not really working right now. My days are just filled with a lot of seeing people. People invite me out. I really appreciate when they invite me out. I never turn down an invitation. But my days are filled with my morning routine and the dogs, and if I have errands to run. A lot of time I'm just here by myself. That's on purpose. Part of me feels really guilty about not having that structure in place. I have business ideas. I haven't kicked any of them in because I'm also a little inconsistent right now. That's due to the lack of discipline and lack of structure. I feel bad about it because I like the structure. I like to create. I like to do things like that. But I was reading something today. This phrase came up, let the fields lay fallow. I grew up on a farm. With the fields lay fallow, this is something I've always talked about. It's something I preached when I was a priest. It's something I haven't really thought about in a while. Letting the fields lay fallow is the idea that before we had things like manure and modern farming, you'd have to let the fields every few years just not grow anything so that the nutrients would replenish in the dirt. Otherwise the crops wouldn't grow. Things would get sickly. You wouldn't have good harvests and things. You have to do that. Gosh, if I was a farmer back then, and we never had to do that because of modern farming. If I was a farmer back in those days, I thought to myself, I have to let my field lay fallow or else I'm not going to have a crop. I would be freaking out about that because what am I supposed to do this year? If I'm not growing my crops this year, what's going to happen in the future? How am I going to survive this year? That is something that I have to be doing right now. And I think that following grief, I think that I have a luxury in being able to not work right now. That is a luxury that Jennifer herself provided me with. I know it's a luxury and I'm very grateful for it because I know not everybody has that luxury. I'm going to go back to work in a month or two. I just didn't have to work for the summer for 3 months. That being said, there's a part of me that wants to get up and go and get up and create and get up and do my business again. It feels bad that I don't have the structure. Just the little discipline that I have only kind of occurs in the morning. Everything else is kind of all over the place. I read and I walk and I do my stuff. So my hair is always, I'm not worried about how I look right now. I don't really care. I bet as time goes on, all this gets fixed up as I get better. I have to remember that it takes discipline to let the fields lay fallow. I'm not justifying, I hate the thought that I might be lazy. I don't feel like I'm being lazy right now. I also feel this urgency to do things, to work, to create, to go back to my business, whatever that business is going to look like in 2-3 months. Because it's zero now. I have to start from scratch basically, because I have let that business lapse while I took care of Jennifer, which is fine. It's not a complaint. I did little things here and there while I was taking care of her. Nothing. I barely made any money last year, like $10,000, and most of that went toward expenses of what I was using that $10,000 to create with. So I didn't really make. I probably made like $3,000 last year. It's okay to let the fields lay fallow if you're following some kind of huge life-altering event. I wish I would have known that when I left the priesthood. I wish I would have known that when my dad died. Those are the big 3 things that I've mourned, grieved over the last parts of my life. It was actually a 4th thing. Moving when I was 12, we moved from Ohio to Texas. That was probably the 4th biggest thing. Probably those 4 big things: moving to Texas when I was 12, losing my dad, leaving the priesthood, and in essence, kind of my faith crisis is tied into that. Losing Jennifer. This has been the worst. This has been the hardest thing. I think in those days, I just wanted to avoid the grief any way possible. I ran back to the seminary. I got involved in the church when I was 12, and Boy Scouts. In some ways, those things are good, but you have to also, I just realized that for me, I have to just let the fields lay fallow and sit in the grief. I have to sit in the grief. That's the only way I'm going to do this, is sit in the grief. Because if I do any of those other things, I will be running from it. I know that eventually, if you run far enough, it always outruns you. Then you're tired. When the grief strikes, you are tired. It's grown. The only way around is through sometimes. The obstacle's the way. I wonder how long this is going to have to go. I'm having a good day today, pretty much. Having a good day. I've had 2 good days. Yesterday was good, and today is good. Saturday was hard. I had a lot of bad days last week. This is helping so much. And it very much may be that nobody will ever see this, which is fine. I'm putting it out there just because it gives me... I did this when I left the priesthood. I wrote a blog and the first time. I did one during the work the second time. I'm still wondering, friends. I know you're still wondering. Everybody's just wondering best they can through life. Resting to recover your strength is not laziness. That's not a lack of discipline. I'm saying that to convince myself. Keep wondering, everybody.